This is the broad overview of what's happening with the stimulus package, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of what's on the table. You will have seen a lot of press releases, so it's not going to be new stuff. The thing which may be news is how much we're expecting in New South Wales and the pattern of that expenditure. So you get a bit of a sense of the timeframes which are involved. And that's the take-out message from that is it's incredibly challenging, and that will go to some of the constraints for us. The first is that we're looking at about $2 billion coming to New South Wales. The process for that is that Housing New South Wales, or the New South Wales government, has to put in a suite of bids to, broadly, their bids to the Commonwealth. And while the expectation is that it will be distributed per capita, hence the $2 billion, it will depend on the Commonwealth being satisfied with what the state puts up. So that's pretty much what we expect, but it's not a done deal yet. The initial 60 is absolutely a bring forward of existing programs, and that will all be done by Housing New South Wales, no question. It's basically works they've got in the pipeline and that they're going to bring forward, and it's stuff that they will have got done in the next, well, it's 4 months, isn't it? So, very quickly. It's after that that it starts becoming interesting and challenging. Almost $4 billion of the more or less $6 billion. I should say that we've taken out of this some of the money which goes for maintenance. So it's only the capital side, not the maintenance side. There's a certain amount that's maintenance. But almost $4 billion of the $6 billion is going to have to be expended in the next financial year. So you can see the dimensions of the challenge. 2/3 of the $2 billion in New South Wales is $1.3 billion in the next financial year. So big stuff, short time frames, hard to achieve. New South Wales, and I might just take a step back, we've already had, and a number of you were at the briefing with the Commonwealth Minister and the Prime Minister in Canberra. So we've been engaging at a Commonwealth level, including with the Federal Minister's office. We've met the State Minister about it, and also Mike Allen, and we have a series of meetings set up for the future. One of the main purposes of those is to find out what comes out from you and to take your views forward to Housing New South Wales and to our Minister. What's going to happen is that all of the stimulus money, so there's the education, there's the money which goes, some of the infrastructure money which was not part of the stimulus package, but it was already committed, and things like the rollout of insulation and so on, and the social housing are all being coordinated by a coordinator general in New South Wales, in every jurisdiction. There's a national one, and there's one in New South Wales. That's Bob Leese, who was formerly a Deputy Director of the Olympic Authority. So he's going to be charged with making sure that New South Wales delivers on its commitments. And I should say that these commitments have been put together into a Commonwealth State agreement, like the National Partnership Agreements, and you can get those off the COAG website, and they're basically the state has signed up to a whole range of conditions, and we can't really shift a long way from the conditions that they signed up to. Some of them are very odd, and we'll come to some of that, and we'll find ways around the odd bits, I guess. It's also worth saying that the social housing bit has its own coordinator. There's a couple of structures. There's the Coordinator General, who, if you like, is like chairing the whole process. We understand that Paul Gilbertson, who was the project manager for Bonnyrigg in Housing New South Wales, is heading the task force, which, if you like, is the operational side of what the Coordinator General is driving. So there's a familiar face, if you like, in driving the whole package. And we also understand, I didn't quite understand this before, but we also understand that Paul Vivers is going to be responsible for the social housing part. When I spoke to Mike originally, he said it'll either be him or one of his executive, and it seems as though it's turned out to be Paul Vivers. They've also changed the infrastructure planning, the infrastructure set, to give Housing New South Wales and the Coordinator General extra powers to make sure that this happens quickly. I'll come in a little while to the breakdown of how they're planning to spend the money in New South Wales, but particularly the bits where the procurement is directly being managed by Housing New South Wales on the new build that they might be putting together. The SEP has been changed basically so that they won't be going through council approval. Housing New South Wales will become its own consent authority. I should say also that in the briefing that I went to from Keneally, the Planning Minister, she suggested that unlike some of the other changes, which are just around the stimulus package, that one doesn't have a sunset clause. So there's an interesting phenomenon. I have asked what powers would flow through to community housing providers if community housing providers were the proponents, say, looking for a DA rather than Housing New South Wales. The second thing to say about that is that they will still be required to meet all of the normal conditions. It's just that they'll make the decision about whether they've met them, with a couple of important changes. First of all, it's the older persons requirements which will apply rather than residential more broadly. So there's a couple of important changes that basically will give Housing New South Wales more powers. There were also a number of identified LGAs and sites where Housing New South Wales, in effect, could say, we have the power to fast-track social housing. Now that's not identified sites, it's very broad brush, and so it will be anywhere where there is a need to locate social housing close to transport. And there are 30 areas that are identified where access to, mainly to commercial, basically to shopping and so on, in 30 sites across the state, which will also be identified. So Housing New South Wales has got some extra capacity to say, these are in areas where we reckon we've got the power to approve. So that's probably unnecessary at this stage because we don't know how much of that will flow through to community housing providers, but it's an important change. Sorry, it's 20.
Up to 20 dwellings.
Up to 20 dwellings. So they can't do large-scale multi-unit developments. They can do up to 20, with one exception. If they need to do more than that, they can apply to the Coordinator General, and the Coordinator General has the power to say anything he wants. So that's the circuit breaker if that's necessary.